Hello everyone! Today I'm going to be showing y'all how to recover a skip hop backpack with a Changepad. Now if you've clicked on this video, you've probably already seen my other backpack that I recovered, which is right here. It is a Terra Baby backpack that is very similar to the skip hop Forma backpack, and I recovered it in a Jujube black pedals Changepad, as you can see here, and this is the back side of the Changepad. But I'm going to be doing a skip hop Forma for this one, and they're a little bit different, but they're similar enough that this shouldn't be that difficult to recover. First things first, you're going to need the backpack. You're also going to need a change pad. This one isn't a Jujube change pad. This is actually a Kanga Care Space Place change pad. It's a lot bigger than the other change pad that I used, so I'm hoping it will work for all of the pockets this time instead of having to use the back side, because Kanga Care change pads are this very soft material in the back. They're not something I can use to recover the pockets, so I'm hoping that it'll work. Alright, now I'm using a standard sewing machine for this. Disregard all of my messy space around my sewing machine, but this is the sewing machine I use. It's a Brother sewing machine. It's a Project Runway edition. Got it from Walmart, and I mean, the first backpack I recovered, it did just fine, so hopefully this one around it will do what it needs to do. Now, you're gonna need your normal presser foot, but you're also gonna need a strong heavy-duty needle. I believe this is a 9014 needle, and you're also going to need strong thread, which this isn't the strong thread that's in here. That's for another project. The strong thread I have is this one. It is by Gutermann. Got it at Joann's. It is a lot stronger than just your normal for everything kind of thread. You're also going to need a seam ripper, sewing scissors or cutting scissors for fabric. You're also going to need a zipper foot presser. A zipper presser foot, I'm sorry. But you're going to need this. That comes in handy when you're going around the seams. Alright, step one in this process. You're going to need your seam ripper and your change pad. Now what you're going to do is take your seam ripper and just go along all of these little stitches along the entire change pad. Rip them out, and you'll get the top layer, which is this, what you're going to use to recover, as just one solid piece of fabric. Alright, I'll check back with you when I get that done. Here's the finished product after ripping all of the edges. You can see there is some tiny little holes all over the sides, but whenever we're cutting our fabric, we're going to count that, like, go in a little bit, because you're going to need a hem anyways for where you're placing this, so you don't need to cut this part off right here. Just a little FYI. And here's the other piece. This was the back side of it. I didn't take all of the stitching out because, well, I don't need it, and I don't know what I'm going to do with that piece, but I just figured I'd leave it. Here's all of the thread that got ripped out of the change pad and to separate it from the white part. Now, the next part is going to be measuring, and you also need to account for if the print has if it is a print that needs like a certain side, like this I would consider the right way, you know, right side up, only because I'm basing off of Sandy right here. I like her sitting straight up. So now you're going to measure all of these, and in order to do that, for the specific parts you're going to be recovering, you are going to detach the parts that you're going to be recovering. So that is the next part of this video. Now, I think first things first, I'm going to do the flap, because to me that's one of the more important parts, the flap in here. Okay, so I unzipped the flap, and you're going to work from the inside. That's kind of one of the secrets to sewing, is it's always inside out. That's where you get your hems, your seams, you know, you do everything so the outside looks nice like this. It looks flawless, basically. Now what we're going to do is right here. You see where this is binding, where it binds your zipper to the fabric. Let me see if I can get it to focus. Okay. It binds the zipper to the fabric, this piece right here. So what we're going to do is get our seam ripper, and you see those tiny little stitches right there, like right by my thumbnail. You're going to go all the way around. Sorry, my camera's not focusing. But you're going to go all the way around and unstitch that. So I'm going to be right back. Let me go do that, and we'll move on to the next step. Okay, I haven't finished completely undoing the binding. I've only done like one side of the flap here, but I wanted to show you something. It was a little bit different on the Terra Baby. The only thing that kept the zipper and the flap together was the binding itself, so I didn't have to do this extra step, which isn't a huge deal. But you see this black seam right here? You're going to need to also rip that as well, because that is where... Sorry, it keeps focusing and unfocusing. But it's where the zipper and the flap are attached. So you're going to have to undo that seam right there. Not this blue stitch, but the black one, because that's what is attaching it to the zipper. And we want to take that zipper off in order to make this side, the front side, look like this, to where it kind of gets tucked into the zipper, as opposed to like meeting and not looking as well, because you can see it's still attached even where I undid the binding. So I'm going to continue doing that, and I'll get back with you after that. Okay, so I have seam ripped both of those, so now you should have 3 pieces. You have your zipper here, you have your flap, nice clean edge, and it should still be sewn to this blue part. You want it to stay intact like that, so it kind of saves you that hassle. And you should also have your binding. Now, I reuse the binding. If you want to, you can replace it. It'd probably be better to replace it, but I'm just going to reuse it. I don't see too much of an issue with it. I'm not the best at even putting it on, so. Our next thing is measuring our fabric and the placement. You got to remember where the placement is too, if that's important to you, because I mean, my black petals one placement wasn't a huge thing for me, but on my Toki prints it kind of is. I have my preference, which is, like I said, Sandy on the Moon. Now what I'm going to do, take the flap like this, and you're going to cut a piece the exact size of your flap. Now I kind of just eyeballed it on the first bag, which is probably what I'm going to do with this one. But what I first did was I lined it up with the corners like this. And I kind of just, you know, did that. It's hard to do because I'm holding my phone recording and I only have one hand. But I laid it down flat like this. And I kind of did a small little cut right here to show, okay, it needs to go to right here. And then I made a cut up here, right where I wanted it to end, which is right here. Now, something that I'm going to mention to y'all before I forget is I don't undo this part, which it would look a lot better if it went down into that seam and I did undo it. But for the sake of, you know, if you only have like a regular sewing machine and you don't have an industrial sewing machine, it's not going to be very simple sewing the straps back on, the grab handle and straps, because this is a very thick piece right here to sew back together. I'm hoping y'all can understand what I'm saying, but what I did with the other bag, let me go ahead and grab it so I can show y'all, was I did a cross zigzag stitch across the top. Now my machine was acting up, so it's kind of uneven in places, you can kind of tell, and it was just a raw cut. I didn't hem this because I was running out of Changepad, but I just did a nice raw cut and zigzag sewed it along the top right there. And you can kind of see where there's some flaws in all my seamstressing? No, sewing. That's probably the accurate thing to say. Sorry. But yeah, now I'm going to cut my piece to go for a Skip Pop backpack, and I'll get back with y'all. Okay, I'm back. I'm trying to turn towards the light because I realized I was getting kind of a backlit area at points when I was showing y'all things. So I've cut out my piece. This will be my flap, and as you can see, it's not like completely even. It's not straight, you know, there's edges, like I cut it like kind of wonky and crooked, but that's okay. Now I'm going to show you what you do next. You're going to get your flap. You're going to have to kind of push these out of the way so you don't get them all in your business. But I work from the edge, the outer edge. You're going to pin it along the edge all the way up to the sides, on both sides, making like a U with your pins. And then the extra you will cut off a straight line, because I'm going to do the same thing that I did with the other one. Cutting a straight line across and then doing a zigzag stitch on the top. But you're going to pin it, and you're going to have some overage around the sides. Like, look, I'll flip it. You're going to have overage like this. And then once you pin it, and it's all in place, you like it, it's good, you're going to cut all of the extra off, which I'll show you once I get it all pinned in place. We're back. Now, I tucked the binding and the zipper in this change pad pocket because it keeps doing that, getting in my way. But I have pinned the print to the flap, and now I'm about to trim off all of this excess along the sides. If you can notice, I did pin it along the top there. I have not trimmed it just yet, but I'm going to do that right after I trim the sides. Okay, so I have trimmed the top now. Let me tell you, it was not easy, but I trimmed it. So now we have our flap just pinned on, and you are going to use your regular presser foot with your stronger thread, and you're going to go all around the outside here. All around, just the U. Do not do this part. We'll come back to that. Alright, I just sewed on the top here. This is what it looks like. The edges are not exactly the cleanest, but yeah, that's what you need, because the binding will cover majority of that. Now you just need to tie your ends. I'm trying to. And for those of you who are not sewing experts or don't know, do not tie your two ends like this. Hang on, the zipper's in the way. Don't tie them like this around on both sides. Pull one side through. You should have a little loop when you pull on the edge. Let it focus. Focus. Okay, maybe it's not going to focus. But there's a little loop right there, and you're going to pull it through so that both pieces of string are on one side and you tie it. And I'm going to do that to both sides, and then I'll get back with y'all. Next step is going to be sewing the top. This part up here, where it's loose. And it's going to be that open seam. Or, well, not open seam, but an open, like the print isn't hemmed right here. That's what I'm trying to say. Now, I went ahead and zipped the zipper back so I get one of these little pieces out of my way. And I tucked the binding down here by the change pad. What you can do is pin the binding down back here in the slip pocket. One, you'll never see the pinhole, and two, it'll ensure that it's not in your way because you don't want to accidentally sew it. This part is a little bit tricky. I say that, I mean, it seems like it's simple because it's kind of a straight across stitch, but it's zigzagged. But because you have binding right here, I did kind of mess up on the other one, and I'm going to go ahead and show y'all that. See, here's the binding on the Terra Baby. You can see that I kind of sewed that part on the binding, which made it 10 times harder to sew because it's thick right there. But on the outside, it looks just fine. And really, it doesn't affect the functionality. It's just a black line. So it's kind of up to you on how you do this. You could have hemmed it to where you could just do a straight stitch across. But this particular bag, I had actually ran out of change pad, and this was like the last bit that I had. So I had to make it work because I had no room to hem it. That was the end of it right there. So I'm going to just go ahead and do the same thing on that one. Okay. Go to your sewing machine, and you're going to look at your stitch settings here. Mine happens to be number 4. It is a cross stitch, and it's showing you that that little line over that it's 1 stitch. And you're also going to go to your settings. Let me go ahead and set it to 4. Okay. And make sure that you're using the right foot for your stitch, which is, mine's a J foot, and that's the just normal little foot here. Now you're going to want to adjust your settings so that the stitch is wider. Mine, for the length of the stitch, like, it's hard to explain. This one, the 1.4 right here that you see, is the, like, how far it's going to go. And the 3.5 is the length of the stitch, so it's going to go like this. 3.5, whatever, I guess millimeters. I really don't know. I haven't looked, but I set it at 5 last time. And if you're like me and you're going to accidentally sew through the binding, or you might be prone to it, you're going to have to play around with tension, because this is a very thick piece right here and it will mess with you. You're going to have to go probably back and forth over the spots, because I know I did miss some on my last one. I didn't sew it yet, but I wanted to come back and say that I took the binding and pinned it down onto the side I don't want it to be, so that whenever I sew on this side, it'll hopefully be a little bit flatter of a surface with this binding out of the way. Okay, another helpful hint before I get started. I don't know if y'all can see that, but there is a little line right there on the clear part of my sewing machine. Let me get a needle and I'll try to point to it so you can tell what I'm talking about. It is this little line right here. I'm hoping y'all can tell. It is the center line. It shows you that that is the center of where you're going to be sewing. So you want to do that. You see how my needle is offset? Hopefully y'all can see the needle right here. My needle is offset because the stitches are going to be going on either side of that, and so you want that center edge to be at the very, like, where your seam is. Like, it's kind of hard to show but okay, see, I want that little line right there on the edge of the seam of the fabric here that I'm attaching. Okay, I did my first run through with the stitch. I didn't even get all the way to the end because, if you can see here, I kind of went off track. So I'm going to unstitch that and go back over. But I wanted to show y'all what it looks like so far. Let me turn it towards the light so hopefully y'all can see it just a tad better. See how it is uneven? This happens. It's thick fabric, not really easy to control, but it's going to look better. You see what you do, I'm going to have to take out right here, where I started to lose my off center all the way to about right there. But I'm going to go back over it because you want it to end up looking like that. You see how it's kind of tighter stitched? That's the main goal, is to look like that. Okay, I am back and I have gone over the flap. And I'll show you what the outside looks like. And yes, I'm using the flash. It's nighttime. So I'm trying to get a good look. This is the part I went back over. I started from the very beginning over here, went back over, and I'll zoom out a little bit. See, it's not very noticeable. I'm going to probably go back over this part right here, just to ensure that it's really stitched on there. But this is what the inside looks like. I ended up catching some of the binding, which doesn't look great. You know, it's not the best of work, but it's still, you know, usable. It's what's on the outside that matters. I know it's pretty shallow, right? But hey, it's a bag. It's what's on the outside that matters. But I'm going to show you how the inside of my first one looks. So I'm going to show you. Definitely, I think I've done better on the second one, knowing what I know now type thing. But I'm going to go back over this area right here where I didn't do a double stitch over, and after that what I'm going to do is, let me undo the zipper here. I'm going to pin the zipper like so. Okay, it's kind of hard to see from this picture, but what you literally are doing is taking the zipper here and pinning it like this against the outside edge. And I only had one pin right now, but that's how you do it along the whole entire outer edge until this entire zipper is pinned to the entire flap. And then that's where your zipper foot will come in handy. And you'll sew it like this on the zipper side so you can see it. And sew around the entire side like that. Ooh. Okay, here she is all pinned up. And don't mind how these edges are like that. Whenever you're sewing, you just need to make sure to kind of pull and keep it kind of taut around those, especially around the corners. You can see they're kind of moving away from the edge. But you want to make sure to try and sew as close to the zipper as possible, not on the outer edge, on this edge, but don't run into the teeth of the zipper. Okay, I just wanted to show y'all that while sewing, I leave the pins in just about to my presser foot's right on top. What I do to get them out, a little trick, is lift your foot up, grab some little needle nose pliers, and pull that baby out. Easy peasy, just a little trick I want to show y'all. Alright, here's what we look like with the zipper sewn on. You can see the edges are still kind of pulling right here, but that's okay because once we put the binding back on, it'll cover that and kind of hold it in place. And also keep the zipper from rubbing against itself and the edges of the fabric and catching. So that's what the purpose of the binding is, and also to look a little bit better. Here's what the inside looks like. The lines aren't exactly the most perfect there ever was, but you know, they work. You can see right here, let me let it focus, that one, I have a loop here, but I'm not going to be too worried about that, only because the binding will cover that, and you know, it shouldn't cause too many problems for me. But you can kind of see how I did not, or was this the edge? No, I did actually get pretty close on this one. You can see how I got close. You want to get close to the base here, where that, you can see where the thread goes to. You want to get close. This side I didn't. I think this is the one I started on. You can see I started right here because my machine couldn't get any closer. So I'm going to have to hand sew right here. Also, I will have a hole, and my zipper will catch quite easily on this. So I need to hand sew that real quick. But after I hand sew it, the next step is going to be pinning on the binding. And you'll just pin it on, you know, like, hang on. Pinning on the binding like this. Well, with pins, obviously. Now, some of these edges, you can see, are kind of long, I guess you can say. You can trim the edges because it'll cover more, the binding will cover more of like your stitches and whatnot if you trim these edges. But make sure to not go down to any of your stitches, or else, you know, you're going to unstitch everything. So just trim, you know, along right there and along all your sides if you want to kind of make sure that you cover your edges. I have pinned all of the binding on. It looks like it's all buckled right now, and it is because of the pins. But once it's sewn on, it'll look a lot better. So I'm about to go sew that, and I'll be back. Alright, there is the finished flap, all zipped up. Looks pretty nice. At least I like to think so. Now, I think the next part I'm going to do the front pocket. To me, this was probably the most difficult. Well, actually, on the last one, the most difficult was the side zippered pocket because it was so tiny and it was very hard to do. But this will probably be the most difficult on this particular bag. And what I plan to do is do a probably 3-part video. First one being for the flap on how to do that, how to recover it. And then second part's going to be recovering the front pocket. And then the third video will be on side pockets. And I'll probably just do a video showing one because, I mean, they're the same thing. And then I'll show an end product at the very end of that one. Alright, I'll see you in my next video. Thanks for watching.